Welcome to Laser Reviews. My name is Ovid, and I'm watching a lot of movies in my spare time. Some of them are good, a lot of them are terrible. That's why I decided to give you my recommendations for which movies to watch and which ones to stay away from, especially in horror movie franchises. Of course, these are just my opinions, and you are very free to disagree. Today, I will be talking about a movie franchise that I actually never thought that highly of, that I never really cared to watch too many movies from. And I think also a movie franchise that is maybe the reason why I always thought that sequels were probably just generally terrible, especially horror movie sequels, and that is Halloween. I had previously, prior to watching the movies for this review, I had watched some of them. I'll just tell it right away, I'd watched the first one, the third one, the Rob Zombie remake, and then I actually got the idea to watch all of them after watching the new sequel trilogy, I guess you'd call like the end of Halloween trilogy. And I will already say that I'm going to talk about 13 movies here, which is already a lot, but also a lot of the movies have a lot of things I can say about them. I'll try to be concise to save my own voice and to not waste your time too much. So let's just get started. Let's get started here. Right away with Halloween 1 from 1978. This one is the only one of two of the Halloween movies that will be made by John Carpenter. The first one and the third one. And I will already say that I never thought that much of this movie. And that's a shame because John Carpenter is quite possibly my favorite director. So, not enjoying one of his most, I don't know, influential works, I guess. At least the one that really sparked a huge following, at least movie wise. It always felt a bit weird to me. So, it's a movie that I want to like. So after rewatching it, I think this is the third time watching it for when I watched it for this channel. I will say it is better than I remember, but it's still not highly engaging. After watching all the Friday the 13th movies, I just think it doesn't really hold up to the entertainment value of those. And comparing it to other scary or slasher or whatever thrillers out there, it's also not too wild. But it is the movie that is pretty much responsible for spawning the slasher genre or slasher subgenre of horror films. It's not the first slasher movie, but it's the first one to gain popularity and at least from my understanding of it, and create basically the foundation of what would be Friday the 13th, what would be Sleepaway Camp. It's the first babysitter bloodbath babysitter killer movie that I can think of. So it did and that might actually not be true. I haven't looked this up. But it is a babysitter murder film, which is again also just a subgenre in its own right, or a subgenre. So it is very influential. So just to give you a bit heads up on not heads up, but just give you a bit brief plot summary. It starts off in 1963 on Halloween night, and 6-year-old Michael Myers kills his teenage sister, and as a result, he gets locked up for 15 years. But during a prison transfer to a new facility, he escapes, and his psychiatrist or doctor, Dr. Loomis, is then in pursuit of him as he knows how dangerous he is, how capable he is of committing horrible acts, and that he's basically not a human but a monster. So right off the bat, we have this guy chasing him down, trying to warn people about him. Not too hectic. It will be more hectic in the following movies after he has just seen exactly what Michael Myers is capable of. But right now, it's actually more low key. He's not overacting anything. And actually, Dr. Loomis is being his character is a really interesting character in this film, and it's quite well played. It's a really engaging one. I think if there's one thing I can definitely say about John Carpenter is he's usually has a really good cast in his movies, and he's instructing them very well, very effectively. And Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, is also doing a fantastic job as the main girl we're seeing. She is in high school and she's a babysitter, so she's our main character. What then transpires is that Michael Myers just gets this idea of going on a murder spree because it's Halloween night again, and it's time to kill, I guess. What I like about the first movie is Michael Myers is basically just described or portrayed as a monster that kills. There is no rhyme or reason to it. It's just it's in his nature to murder. Not all the time. There are some. I think looking at it in hindsight, it's a bit silly in that you have a lot of scenes with him just walking around. I don't know if he's wearing his mask at that point or if he's just wearing his human face out, because you do see his human face in this film and his human face. You do see his face in this film, and it's not really a scary one. So that would explain why a lot of people react to it not in too weird of a fashion. He's also wearing this jumpsuit, I think it is, that might not be too extraordinary, and he's not really that tall or that big, so it's not. He's just a bit weird. He's walking around, people bump into him and just find him a bit odd. He's kind of stalking children without doing much. So exactly why he chooses to kill the people he kills, I'm not sure, but he then decides to stalk these babysitters because we have the main lead, then there's the main lead's friend whose father is the sheriff, or at least works for the sheriff's department, who then teams up with Loomis after Loomis approaches him. And you have the third girl who hooks up with a guy. And so Michael Myers just starts killing these people. And I think what I should say about this movie is this cinematography is quite good. I mean, it's John Carpenter movie, so the sound design, the cinematography, camera angles, the dialogue, the acting, it's all good. It has some silly things, at least I find them a bit silly. There are a lot of jump scares in it, but you know, those fake out jump scares that I really hate. And this, I think, from what I understand, this is one of the movies that really started that. And fortunately, it doesn't do it in the same horrible manner today, where we are more supposed to be afraid of a sound than something that actually happens. Whereas in this one, it's just people kind of sneaking up on each other unintentionally. So it has some very effective scenes. There's the hiding in wardrobe scene when Michael Myers stalks Laurie Strode, and she has to hide these kids that she's taking care of, that she's babysitting, and that scene where she's talking to them and Michael Myers just gets up in the background, or when he's shot by Loomis. I think he's shot 6 times with his revolver and then just disappears, just walks off. So there are some really effective scenes in it, but it's also stupid in ways I wish it wasn't. So when Laurie Strode comes across the scene where her friends have been killed, so it's her babysitter friend. And that scene where she's killed is actually quite effective. He's just Michael Myers hiding in the car and pretty much strangling her, and then carries her body around later, and where she's spotted by one of the kids. It's a very effective scene. Just I don't know. I can't love this movie, and I really wish you could. And you have and that sorry, and then you realize later that he rearranged all these corpses in this house for no apparent reason. That's his thing. So he's not just a murderer, but he's also an artistic murderer who likes to scare people. So the Michael Myers character, I just applauded the movie for not giving him any agency for why he kills the people, but at the same time he's doing stupid things that don't really make sense, that just I kind of need, because he takes the gravestone of his sister, from what I remember, and then he just lays out one of the girls he kills on the bed and puts the gravestone behind her head, and then he puts another girl in the cupboard and ties one of them to the ceiling so he can fall down, and all just happens to happen in that scene. So that Laurie Strode is there, and then she sees the girl who's dead. Then suddenly the guy drops from the ceiling. Then the door opens to the cupboard on its own. It's really, really silly, and I couldn't help but laugh. It's supposed to be this frightening moments, but it's just kind of silly. So it has those moments that I don't know. It also has. I will dread talking about this movie in a little while, but it has one scene that is just copied by Rob Zombie in his remake. And I think it's one scene that, again, it has been done so many times since then that watching it now, it really isn't effective because I've seen it already so many times. But if it really is one of the first movies, if not the first movie to do this, I have to give it some credit. Where after sex, so post coitus, one guy gets up to get a beer for the girl. He's killed, and then Michael Myers pretends to be him by putting on a sheet as a ghost costume, and then while the girl kind of gets fed up with him and looks away, he kills her. So that's something we've seen in so many other movies, and something we'll see again in the Halloween franchise. But when it's done the first time, I'm not really sure I can hate it as much. It's just, I don't know. I think this movie was effective at its time. Obviously, it was. It's gained such a not just popularity, but it created all these other movies that tried to mimic it. But I don't really enjoy it. It's not bad. I can enjoy some of the film work in it, but it's just not that engaging. It's not that entertaining. It's not that scary to me. And I've already talked so much about the first one that I know that I will have to try and limit myself. So without wasting my own time and your time even more, which I am with the word I'm saying, I should move on to the sequel. But before really starting on the second one, I should say that John Carpenter's original idea was to create a Halloween franchise where each entry is a different story. So John Carpenter was never interested in making a sequel to the Michael Myers story. It was to him the perfect boogeyman story, just that had been told. It was done, it was finished. But because it was so popular, it was pressed into being made, like a sequel was pressed into being made, and he didn't really want to do it, so someone else went in and did it. And it's a direct sequel, it came out in 1981. And it has the same very iconic opening. I forgot to talk about the other one, but it has so John Carpenter's theme that is just amazing. And you see this slowly dissolving pumpkin, carved pumpkin, and it slowly dissolves and it turns into a skeleton, like no, a skull. That's pretty cool. I really like that opening, and a lot of the movies have that opening, and it's so iconic and it's so amazing. It's so well done. Honestly, it's probably the best thing about any of the movies, kinda, at least the first two movies and many of the other movies. That opening is so brilliant. But this one is a direct sequel in that it actually starts exactly where the first one ends. So it starts with Loomis exiting the house after seeing Michael Myers disappear and be very worried about what the hell is going on. Like, no, he should be dead. I shot him 6 times. And the police officers don't believe him. Like, how could you shoot him 6 times and he's still walking around? You probably just missed. You probably didn't hit him. And the rest of the movie is just the police with Dr. Loomis chasing after Michael Myers. And Michael Myers, Laurie Strode did get a bit injured, so she is brought to the hospital. And Michael Myers is then making it to the hospital to kill her off. And I would say this movie is actually, in its own right, it's a decent film. I think as a slasher, it's a better slasher than Halloween 1. It's not a better movie than Halloween 1, but as a slasher, it has more of the tropes. It has more memorable characters, not better actors or more memorable casting in that sense, but it has just like what you expect from a slasher movie from the 80s. It has some decent kills. It has some semi iconic scenes. It takes mostly place at this hospital. But why I will say that it is a terrible sequel, and I think why a lot of people hate it, is that this movie is why it created the story or warped the story so that Laurie Strode is not just a babysitter. She is also Michael Myers' sister. I hate that so much. It removes everything that made Michael Myers scary in the first one. Like, he's this. Okay, you do see his face. I actually think it might have been better in the first movie if you don't see his face, because then he would be just this hypothetical monster that just goes around killing. You never really have an idea why he kills, or like he just seems to be like there's nothing human left in him. He's just a monster. So seeing his face, no, not too bad, but having him stalk Laurie Strode because it's his sister and he wants to kill her is just such a terrible idea. And the problem is, this is kinda sets off what will be dominant in so many of the Friday the 13th movies. I think all the way up until Rob Zombie's remake, but even Rob Zombie includes it in his movies. So this idea was so prevalent and terrible that it alone pretty much ruined every single Halloween movie after. It also is very stupid in so many ways. A lot of scenes don't work, a lot of character actions don't work. It has a lot, again, something we will see a lot, Michael Myers kind of feigning death, and then he gets up and kills someone. But it kind of works in this one. It has some, as I said, decent kills, so it's not terrible. Actually, I think you can enjoy this as a movie. It's not a very enjoyable movie, it's not a very recommendable movie, but it is, as a standalone film, it kind of works. It's just a terrible sequel, and I hate what it did to the franchise. A franchise, I should add, I never really liked in the first place, but this just ruined it. So having talked about how the second one ruined the storyline of Halloween 3, let's go to the movie that just ignored that storyline. The return of John Carpenter in Halloween 3, The Season of the Witch. Also, I want to say that these movies, I forgot to mention that, and I normally don't talk much about this in my movies, but in my reviews, but the Halloween movies really don't have a high budget, and it kind of makes sense. It's the first two movies are very simple, but the third one has the same budget as the second one, and it really is so much more ambitious and so much more wacky that I'm really impressed at what John Carpenter achieves with his budget, but I would also love to see what would have been possible had he just had twice as large a budget. It's only 2.5 million in 1982, so it's really a really low budget. It's not the lowest budget, but still, what he achieves is insane. So the film opens up with a guy being pursued by some mysterious man, and he gets wounded and taken to a hospital where the doctor, played by Tom Atkins, I love that guy, of course being alcoholic because he always is in his roles, and of course always also being a strained family father because he always is in his roles, or well, actually that's not true, but he's always like just like this kind of down on luck, fed up guy who's just fed up with everything. I love that guy. He then takes care of this guy, and this guy who was wounded, he had some weird, strange Halloween masks in his possession, and while at the hospital, another man comes in and kills him, and before our heroes can, or before Tommy can catch up to him, he gets into his car and pours gasoline over himself and lights himself on fire, which also makes the car explode because, effects! I love exploding cars in movies. But yes, so this is very strange. And therefore, Tom Atkins decides to investigate. And this mask is made by the Silver Shamrock Company, so he knows where to go for his research, for investigating further. I don't know why he's not a policeman. I don't know. I guess he has nothing better to do, being a doctor and all. So yes, it's basically the wacky adventure of a man investigating the odd murder of some random dude, and it turns into this Celtic druid conspiracy with androids and beetles and killer masks and laser beams and sex with androids and weird Irish people. It's just, I love this movie. It's really good. It's oh. I know that Halloween 3 is the most controversial probably of all the Halloween movies because it's not a Michael Myers story, but that's exactly why it works for me. This is such a good movie, and I think it's generally quite underrated. I think in the last few years it has gained increased popularity, or at least recognition as a film, just in its absurdity and how John Carpenter just knows how to make these weird stories that a lot of people don't really involve themselves with, and he's really good with the effects. It has some truly horrifying scenes with people's with children, because this is a druid. I kind of forgot. I don't think it matters that much why they do what they do, but it has to do with Stonehenge and all these things, and they invent these masks. They create these masks that, when watching a commercial, the masks will eat child's. No, like beetles will come out and turn the child's head into beetles or something. I know, it's disgusting. And you actually see a child die this way. It's really horrifying. And yeah, Tom Atkins just, I don't know, he's just this middle-aged drunkard. He just fucks these young women, or at least this young. And yeah, it's full of odd characters because he goes to the Silver Shamrock. So that's this whole town that's just owned by this corporation, and everybody works for it. So the Silver Shamrock town, and yeah, it's. Oh, I don't know. What else can I say? It doesn't have a good ending. It probably has one of the most horrifying endings of any movie I've seen. At least any movie that doesn't end with complete apocalypse, and also it kind of doesn't make sense because the commercials for these masks are quite terrible, but all children want them, and there are only 3 masks to choose from, meaning that all children want to dress up the same for Halloween. I don't know if it's implied that magic is used in those commercials to attract children to buy them, but it really doesn't make sense to me that all children want to buy these masks. So there have to be at least some children who just want to do their own thing, or parents who don't want to spend their money on it. But no, in this universe, this Halloween universe, all children are the same basically, and all parents are willingly going into this. And yeah, no, maybe some magic or something. But regardless, I'm wasting too much time here. It's a really good movie, really enjoyable movie, probably quite decent movie, but really enjoyable movie, and I can highly recommend it. And that's why it saddens me so much that we had to return to Michael Myers, because we have, what is it, 8 more Michael Myers movies? No, not fucking 8. We have 10 more Michael Myers movies to talk about. So, Halloween 4 from 1988 is not a good film. It follows a supposedly comatose Michael Myers being transferred from one psychiatric hospital to the other. But while in the transfer, the hospital personnel talks about that there is this surviving niece to Michael Myers who is in foster care of someone else, and I don't know, it kind of is implied that Laurie Strode isn't alive anymore, which I don't know how that really works, but it kind of does, and that doesn't really explain some of the later entries. I don't know. It's not really a well-established universe, and I don't think people care at this point, but that means that Michael Myers has a purpose in life again to kill his family members, because that's apparently what Michael Myers does now, because, the second film is a terrible film. So, yes, Michael Myers wakes up from his coma and kills these people in the ambulance. Again, Loomis, again played by Donald Pleasence, arrives at the scene, and the police doesn't buy that Michael Myers can be alive after the incident. But, of course, he is alive after the incident because he's Michael Myers. So, yeah, again, the family lives in Haddonfield. Like, I didn't say that before. All these movies take place in Haddonfield, Illinois, I think it's supposed to be. And the police are just lost, like, where would Michael Myers go? I don't know, what would make sense? And Loomis says, oh, he's probably going to Haddonfield, and they don't believe him because Haddonfield is several hundred miles from there. But, it's Loomis, he knows Michael Myers. So I don't like what they did to Loomis in this film. They kind of make him a lunatic. It gets even worse in the 5th installment. But Loomis is just this madman, like the town lunatic, and he's disfigured because. So the second one ends with Michael Myers being burned alive, and Loomis is also burned in that scene, so he's disfigured. But Loomis then, without the support of the police, goes in the direction of Haddonfield, and he comes across a gas station where Michael Myers already killed the people working there, stole the clothes, and then blows up the gas station, taking Loomis' car with him. So Loomis now has to hike to Haddonfield while Michael Myers can go there in his I don't know, his own car, I guess. Or well, the car is stole. So Loomis is pressed for time, that's what I'm trying to say, and he ends up being hitchhiking with this priest, this drunk priest who's drunk driving and is a lunatic. That's actually the only scene in the film I think I like. Like the priest thinks that Loomis is on a path, on a mission chosen by God, and then they're both doing God's work in their own right. And Loomis is just sitting there really looking worried about being in the same car as this madman, but also he needs his help. And when offered a drink, he accepts it. So I know it's the only scene in the movie that I kind of like. And I just think it's just because Donald Pleasence is such a good actor, and this movie just is so full of shit. Because the thing is, the niece of like the supposed niece of Michael Myers is played by this child, Danielle Harris, who I must say in this movie and then the next one is the main reason why the movies are terrible. She's not a terrible actress herself. She's quite good in The Last Boy Scout. And oddly, she returns in the Halloween remakes, where when she plays those roles, I think she's in her mid-30s, but she's playing a teenager. I know, it's just, she's not a terrible actress, but in this movie, she is the terrible performance. The fourth movie is not too bad. It's basically, it's her with Denise, so much of the film is just Michael Myers stalking her, killing some people along the way. There's quite a good scene where she sees him while in a store. That's a bit effective, and I think it's copied in. I think they do remake that scene in the new Halloween trilogy. I not. I think they do. That at least I had déjà vu when I watched that scene. But yeah, let's just cut it. Make it short here because they are being chased, and the caretaker, the foster mom, drives over Michael Myers, and then the police shows up and shoots him. And I said before that there was only one scene I liked. Actually, I do like the other scene because it reminded me of Friday the 13th. Jason Goes to Hell, where it just opens up with Jason being blown up by all these special forces guys or these SWAT guys or whatever. And this scene is a bit similar. Michael Myers is just being blown to pieces with these shotguns, and it's just entertaining. It's actually that's good. So the movie has two good scenes, but overall wasn't that enjoyable. It was not terrible. It just felt like a subpar slasher, and was worse than the second one, but not absolutely terrible. I think the only reason why I can actually give it just a slight thumbs up, not a recommendation, just not hate it, is because so many other movies from here on out will actually suck. The fifth one from 1989 is so bad that it broke me. I'd kind of forgotten how terrible it was because it'd been a few weeks before, or since I saw it. But then when I went back in and had to get the clips for it, or the screenshots for it, for the purpose of this review, I rewatched a lot of the scenes, and I realized how much I hated it. I got angry. I actually got angry. I got really frustrated doing this because this movie is just so terrible. And I think a lot of it has to do with how much you can tolerate child over the top child performances, because so much of this movie is just Daniel Harris making faces, making convulsions, screaming, yelling, crying, doing. It's just so much in this movie. And she's supposed to be adorable. You're supposed to care for her. She's supposed to be also a bit frightening because in the fourth one, it actually ends with her killing her foster mom. Kind of. I don't know exactly why, but I think it's supposed to be that blood, like murder, runs in the Michael Myers family, and that there's this link. Like she seems also to care about Michael Myers or care for him in the fourth movie, and in this one there's this psychic link between them. It's really weird and it doesn't really work. But it's the performance of her performance and the performance of one other child in this movie. I hated every second of it. I could really, it's so much. It's just too much. Oh man, I can't even. You have to watch it yourself, and maybe you think I'm exaggerating. Maybe I'm just allergic to this kind of child acting. I think I would react the same way if it was an adult doing the same thing. To be honest, but I really didn't like it. Oh, but it's not the only bad thing about the movie. I just had to start with that, and I think it takes place 1 year because all the thing about the Halloween movies is they all have to take place on Halloween, so they always have to come up with excuses why it's suddenly Halloween. So after being shot so many times in the first film, and we actually get to rewatch, no, sorry, in the fourth film when we get to rewatch that scene in this one, Michael Myers actually escapes to the river and is being carried away by the river, and it looks so goddamn silly. I think it's supposed to be a bit scary, but it just was so goofy. It was so stupid, and he arrives at this hut of this hermit who he's too weak to kill him, but he tries to kill him, but the hermit then decides to take care of him and nurse him back to health, which takes a year. So after a year, he kills the hermit. I have no idea how that year transpired because it supposedly didn't take a year for him to recover. So just why the hermit kept him around. I know it really, the movie's just stupid. It doesn't really care about that. And then he comes back to kill Denise, to kill Daniel Harris. The problem is that Daniel Harris is now in a psychiatric hospital, and she's having these visions, and Loomis is still involved, but again, this movie just rapes him as a character. He's even uncomfortable in this movie. He becomes almost abusive towards her, and he keeps insisting that Michael Myers is still after her, and he does his stick, and everybody around him don't believe him. But then, of course, Michael Myers shows up and starts killing people, and It has the douchebag character, which kind of looks like, I don't know, it's just really goofy, not cool looking guy, and all the costume, all of the outfits in this movie are terrible. I really don't have anything positive to say, and I don't want to spend more time. It's just not good. It's just terrible. Yeah. I was physically feeling anchored and uncomfortable after watching it. It's really not good. I realized I forgot to say something that I actually really didn't like about the fourth one. It has that stupid trope where someone sacrifices himself for no apparent reason. So yeah, there's a guy who dies in it for a really stupid reason in a really stupid way, and that's terrible. So that's why when I said before that it's not that good, I actually forgot to bring some of those things in because it's just it's not it really doesn't work that well. It's not very interesting, but I should also remember to say the ending of this one is the fifth one is probably the only moment in it that's slightly interesting because Michael Myers is Loomis uses Daniel Harris in a trap to tranquilize Michael Myers, arrest him, and he's brought into a cell. Which after all that has happened, thinking that a cell will hold him, and then some guy shows up. We don't never know who this guy is, but some guy shows up and blows up the prison, letting Michael Myers kill all these people and escape. And it's just the ending shots of that prison is actually okay. The main problem is we still have this girl exploring the prison, exploring the cells. It's still seen from her perspective, so it's still frustrating. But I think it's the only good visuals in this film is that final scene that is also catastrophically stupid. In that we have no idea who this person is. We never find out, and yeah, it's just I know maybe that's tied to the sixth movie. It doesn't really establish that it is, but knowing what the sixth movie is about, it could be related to it. But I don't know, this movie is just I can't say if it's the worst one in the Halloween franchise because it does compete with two other movies, but it is absolutely terrible and should never be watched. Full disclosure, I just went in and read up on it, and yes, the ending of the fifth installment is directly tied to the beginning of the sixth installment. So the sixth film is from 1995, and this one is very bonkers, and also, oddly enough, it is actually also to some extent tied to Halloween 3. And so the weird man who frees Michael Myers and abducts him and his niece turns out to be like the leader of a druid like cult, or this pagan cult. And then what we see is that the niece, no longer played by Daniel Harris, gives birth to a child. In this almost satanic ritual. It's supposed to be druid, but it also kind of looks satanic. And then escapes. It's this I really had to read up on this because what I just see in the film is just this ritual and a woman escaping, and I have no idea who she is. It's maybe I didn't pay enough attention because I'm so used to this being shit that it's difficult to actually get all these details in. So I'm at least glad someone wrote them down, and I want to really cut this short because it's not a good movie. But yeah, this movie is about this child that escapes and is found by the police, and therefore Loomis gets involved because he still knows the police. Whatever, doesn't really it doesn't really matter how he gets involved. And again, back in Haddonfield, he takes the child, and there's this foster home where is it Tommy Doyle, who is also in some of the other Halloween movies. He's the kid that Laurie Strode was babysitting in the first film. So he's now this weird guy who tries to find out the motives for Michael Myers' killings. He's really obsessed with it, and he becomes this creep. And I don't know, the movie was too perplexing. It has a way too convoluted plot for how shitty it is. And is this druid cult that wants to please Michael Myers? I think they want him to return or give him strength. So they start killing people and start pretending to be Michael Myers. But I also think that Michael Myers does come back. Is I don't know. This is, and I don't know. The motives are not really well established, but it seems like this cult wants to copy the evil of Michael Myers and create this and have this magic or this power of this ancient pagan thing, this druid thing. I don't know. I give up. It's not a good movie. Don't watch it. It's wow. Why did it have to go the places it went? Let's carry on. Now, with that out of the way, we can move on to Halloween H2O from 1998. So they're 20 years after the first one was made. And this one follows Laurie Strode once again, of course, 20 years after what happened in the first film. Now she is a single mom with one son, and her paranoia isn't insane, but she is very traumatized, of course, by the events that happened Halloween. And she therefore doesn't want her son to do anything risky Halloween. It's implied that she's normally quite a relaxed mom and kind of cool about many things, but on Halloween night, she wants her son to stay at home and don't do anything else, anything stupid, whatever. And this film seemingly is a direct sequel to the second Halloween movie, ignoring all the other ones in between, because those movies cut her out of the storyline. So it makes sense that it has to ignore those movies. But it is still implied. No, not implied. It is still a fact that she is the sister of Michael Myers. Therefore, it's a direct sequel to the second one and not the first one. But before I continue with the main plot, I think I should mention how it opens. As it opens with, it doesn't open in Haddonfield. It opens in another town in Illinois, where the home of Dr. Loomis is located. It's his old home because Dr. Loomis has died. It is now being lived in by the woman who was taking care of him at the end of his life. She still kept many things around like they were, which is important because there are files about Laurie Strode in the house, that Michael Myers then comes to the house and finds the files so he can track down Laurie Strode. And she has now moved to California, not Haddonfield, which makes sense. It makes a whole lot of sense, actually, thinking what she went through. But yeah, so Michael Myers shows up at Dr. Loomis' house and kills 3 people. No, sorry, 2 people. And it's, I don't know, it's kind of played as in Scream, like the characters are just buffoons in a way. They don't really seem real, and I think it's a very weak opening to this film. And it's a weak opening to this film because the rest of the movie actually is not bad. I think it's still mediocre at best, probably below mediocre, but the opening is not great. It gives the wrong impression of what you're going to see, as this is more of a slow Halloween movie. It's quite similar to the early ones in that sense that it doesn't have that many kills. It doesn't have that many insane scenes. It's more about character development, and then a few kills that are supposed to be impactful, effective. Giving you emotionally involved, or at least being shocking when they happen and in the way they happen. I'm not really sure I would say that it works that way, or if it was even intended that way. I don't know, but mainly we have 4 main characters who all have terrible late 90s haircuts. It's really annoying. They all look annoying to me. They have the worst haircuts in the world. Our main leading kid has just the ugliest haircut. It kind of looks like Jim Carrey from Dumb and Dumber. His haircut just done even worse. Like done with rusty pair of scissors and without attention to detail. And then I guess that was just fashion back then. But wow, that is ugly. And this very attractive girl has this weird hair hanging down in front of her face, and she's in a relationship with this dweeb. It's one of those really unbelievable movie couples. I guess those people do exist out there, and hats off to them for making it work. But this is, they take this hot guy who is with this averagely attractive woman, I would say, who is the son of Laurie Strode's, and then they have this this nerd who is having an even more attractive woman, at least in my opinion. And in all of the movies, that nerd would play, the kind of guy who can't get any girls or anything. So I think it's a very weird casting. But well, it's not too bad. It's just noticeable. And the reason why I bring it up is that this guy is someone who loves to party. There we have a scene with him opening a bottle of champagne and going to start to drink and have sex, him and that girl. So like he's certainly not playing a dweeb. It's just the way he looks and the way he's styled. It's kind of weird to me, but whatever. Maybe the movie just stands out more for that reason. But just the whole family drama about him trying to gain independence and go away to this, I think it's a camp or this event for Halloween. The Laurie Strode, I should mention, works as a teacher, or is it even the principal? She works at the high school of the son. I forgot which position she has, but she's a very important position at school, enough to give them a big speech. It kind of looks like it's their last day of school, which I don't think it is. I don't know enough about American high schools, but it is kind of implied that it's the last day of school, or at least school is about to end. But I don't think it ends around Halloween. That would be weird, in my opinion. So maybe it's just them being introduced to the new school year, but also that would be weird. I don't really get why there's this big speech and like this coming of age moment and this huge party, because the party doesn't even seem tied to Halloween. It just kind of seems like it was supposed to be like an early summer movie, but they had to set it in Halloween, so that's why they do kind of both. So he tries to persuade the mom to go to this event, and Laurie Strode is really not happy with him putting himself out of harm's way, when and out of her protection, because it's Halloween. She still has this trauma. But after a huge fight, she lets him go. The only thing is, it turns out they never really meant to go to that event. Instead, he arranges his own private Halloween event for him and his girlfriend, because he has never celebrated Halloween, was never allowed to celebrate Halloween by Laurie Strode's, which I also think is an interesting, at least decently interesting character building moment. I am kind of grasping at straws here, just because some of the other movies are so terrible that I am liking this movie much more than most Halloween movies, and it's just because it kind of does a lot of things the first one did right. This one does well as well. Only that you don't care about any of the characters. You don't really even care about the son. Laurie Strode is Jamie Lee Curtis is the only one that's actually that you really root for. No, sorry, I will actually talk about one other guy. Actually, probably Laurie Strode and that person is pretty much who sell the movie. All the teenagers are annoying typecasts. Only that they're not typecast, as I already mentioned. But some of them are killed off. Michael Myers hunts the rest down, tries to kill all of them. So what actually the character wants to bring up is that Laurie Strode has found, so she lives under a fake name, a fake ID. So she gets together with this guy, and he's a very lovable guy, and she then reveals her identity to him, because during the entire day of the Halloween, so the October 31st, she's constantly drinking, and he kind of finds it weird. So he knows that something is wrong, but she never told him the story. Not that there is much to tell, because it's revealed that he has heard about the story that happened in Haddonfield. He just didn't know it was her. So they are forming this relationship. She constantly tries to convince him and other people that Halloween is dangerous, that Michael Myers is still out there, kind of doing the whole Loomis thing. And Michael Myers turns up. He turns up to kill them. And the rest of the movie is just them trying to survive. It does a lot of, it kind of copies some of the scenes from the first one, with Michael Myers getting up in the background and that sort of thing. It does a lot of things right. I think the ending, actually, the very, very end of it, is what doesn't make it. It kind of breaks the movie. It has a lot of things that don't really work well together, and I think it was the sequel to this movie. I think it kind of was always prepared in advance, because otherwise the ending of this really doesn't make sense. And I will have to spoil the ending here, as it's directly tied into the next film. So Laurie Strode has Michael Myers. There's a car accident with, I think it's supposed to be an ambulance. It just looks like a big van. And Michael Myers is trapped between a tree and the van. And he extends his arm over to Laurie Strode, asking her for help. Not verbally, but with his arm. And instead, she cuts off his head. That's it. End of story. Laurie Strode finally killed Michael Myers, right? That's what you're meant to believe. So happy ending. She has a new, her son has a new life. She has a new partner. Everything should be good. So Halloween Resurrection was made 3 years later. It came out in 2001. And the way this messes with the ending of H2O really frustrates me. So it's revealed that at the end of H2O, Laurie Strode doesn't kill Michael. She kills a paramedic that Michael changed clothes with, put the mask on, and crushed not his tonsils, but he crushed those things in his throat that makes him able to speak, so he can't tell Laurie Strode that, hey, I'm actually not Michael. The thing is, the way it's done is when you see the H2O, there's no time for Michael to do this. The ambulance is completely different than it is in H2O. There's so much about this that doesn't make sense. It's absolutely terrible. It's actually some of the worst tie-in, confused, contorted, forced plot twist I have ever seen in anything. And it's if I liked Halloween franchise, I would be mad, I think. Luckily, I don't. So it's just really annoying, but not on a deeply emotional level for me. But yes, as a result of killing him by accident, she's locked up in an insane asylum. Where Michael Myers then finds her 3 years later, and she's been preparing for his return because, of course, she has. So there's this big fight scene, but being traumatized, and she actually has the upper hand. She's about to kill Michael, but because of this trauma with her killing an innocent man, she decides to try to take his mask off first, but that enables him to kill her. But they have this emotional scene where they're hanging off the side of a building, and where with him stabbing her in the back, and she kisses him before telling him to see him in hell, and loses the grip, so she falls to her death. Well, she's already dead, but she falls even more to her death. She dies more. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, that's stupid. That's. I guess it's a way to end that storyline, because this movie obviously didn't want to be a sequel to H2O. This does everything it can to stray away from H2O. I guess this is a contrived and arbitrary way of making a sequel without making a sequel, just doing the tiniest bit of fan service by telling an end to Laurie Strode's story before doing their own thing, because this film is about live streaming Michael Myers killing people. So it's obviously a product of its time when all this was kind of new and really bad. The technology was really, really bad for this. I don't know, the idea is actually not bad. It takes place in Michael Myers' family home, and Buster Rhymes, alongside another woman, gets this idea to invite these different people into this house, and then they get money if they stay there for one night, and it's being live streamed. Even not just cameras around, but a lot of all the actors have cameras on their heads as well, so they can shift between the cameras and everything in the studio, and a lot of things are planted and scripted without the participants' knowledge, to of course make it scarier and engage the audience even more. And the people, this time it's not teenagers, this time it's university students. So the university students involved are all stereotypes, and really a frustrating stereotypes. You have the dumb blonde that just wants to be famous. You have the smart girl who's studying critical theory, and she's just too smart for the men, but she's also rebellious feminist, so she also wants sex, like a woman can claim her right to sex and enjoy sex while also being independent and smart, which is just a character arc. Maybe that was a fresh character arc back then, but today just feels a bit too much, I guess, like too much in your face with everything. But that's just the thing with typecast, because everything is just too much in your face. She gets with this guy who studies music at university, and he's just this really, really dumb guy who's just in modern terms, well, that will also be outdated, I guess, maybe even now, but he's kind of a fucker boy, the one night stand kind of guy who will tell you all the lies and be smart just to get you in bed one time. So that's the kind of douchebag you have. The sleazy kind of douchebag who just wants to see breasts, because even though it's established that, this is the time of the internet, breasts is still such a rarity for these people that they will do everything to see them, not even touch them, just see them. And then you have like the more innocent girl who is more of our lead, and she has this kind of thing with this guy who goes to a party dressed up as John Travolta from Pulp Fiction, and he, rather than wanting to drink at the party, he wants to watch the live stream, so he finds a room he can hide in and watch the live stream, and more people join. We also have one more character in it. This African American dude who is more likable than most of them, and he's one of those you kind of want to live. But honestly, I've forgotten every single detail about him. But he's one of those few people in that who's actually likable. Buster Rhymes is likable for being Buster Rhymes, so basically a cool douchebag, which means he's not likable. And then lead girl is a bit too weak, a bit too much damsel in distress to be really likable. But her and the likable African American guy are pretty much the only people you kind of don't hate in this film. And yes, sorry, this is taking too long. So it's just what this kind of movie is, just stupid typecast people having to die, and the kills are bad. The scene, it's really, really, really ugly. The lighting is terrible. The cinematography is not great. The only good, nice idea is this, live streamed aspect. So even though Buster Rhymes is not exactly likable, all good scenes in this film are with him. So there's one scene where he's dressed up as Michael Myers to scare people, and then Michael Myers finds him. And Buster Rhymes is just, Buster Rhymes, so he just tells Michael Myers to kind of go to hell, like that he's just ruining this thing for him, that he's not supposed to be there, that Buster Rhymes is playing Michael Myers, and Michael Myers just listens to him and walks away. That's kind of funny. It's stupid, but it's funny. And then in the end, I think this movie is also famous. If you heard about this movie, you've probably heard about it because Buster Rhymes uses karate to kick Michael Myers' ass. Yeah, so that happens. There's something else to do, because that's always this movie is. Bad kills, terrible dialogue, and then typecasted characters, stereotypes who do nothing that you wouldn't expect. It's really not a good film. It's not really bad. It's just below mediocre, and there's absolutely no reason to see it. There's not a single really enjoyable moment in it. There are the two goofy moments I talked about that are only enjoyable because the rest of the movie isn't. So yes, there's no reason to see this. And also, I just remembered a detail I think I should say from the last one. So from H2O, we have a scene where Michael Myers, a mom and her daughter in the middle of nowhere, goes to a public bathroom in the men's room, where Michael Myers enters, then goes, and I think he takes something from her bag, and then leaves. Since when did Michael Myers stop killing and just kind of stare at people menacingly? It's just a scene that doesn't fit in with anything. And honestly, that's so. Even though I had more praise, I would say, or at least moderate praise to say for H2O, it still has many flaws. So I'm almost reaching the 1 hour mark, and I have 5 more movies to go. And I think the problem is that the next 2 movies are so utterly garbage that I will have so much to say, but also hate myself while saying it. So hope you stay on, and if you don't, I understand you. I'm honestly not even sure how to start here. So Rob Zombie's Halloween remake from 2007 does everything that's bad or could be done to ruin the Halloween universe. So it decides to be an origin story. So the first, I think, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or even more, it feels long. It's just Michael Myers' childhood. Turns out his mom is a stripper / prostitute. His stepdad is an asshole. His sister is so horny that it's disturbing. And he's being bullied in school. And he also kills animals. And nobody's basically being nice to him. Everybody is being a bully. And okay, so we don't need to know why Michael Myers did what he did. The only one he has a good relationship with the mom. Again, we didn't need to know that. He ends up killing a kid who bullied him. There's so much fucking shit to talk about here. So the thing, what I actually kind of even hate about this movie is it has so many brilliant B, even A tier actors thrown into a given small roles, and it feels so cheap. It's just, oh, that's his face. Oh, that's lovely. But then you realize he's in this movie, so it's just shit on his legacy. For example, the principal of the school is played by the iconic 80s, 90s villain. I forgot his name, unfortunately. He's the villain in the third Puppet Master movie. He's the villain in Invasion USA. He's in a lot of those movies. Always nice to see him in a movie, and now No, not in this one. It's just sad, and he's old. Of course he is. It's weird to see him. You still recognize him, but it kind of looks like they made him even like use prosthetics or something to make him look even older because I don't think he's aged that much in 15 years or something. So between this and the last movie I saw him, and it looks really unnatural. And also, this movie is full of plot inconsistencies and terrible world building. There's no attention to detail. This is just Rob Zombie wanting to do something that is cool in his universe, and he has the worst taste in anything. I mean, okay, he does like some cool music, but then again, the cool music he likes is just what's in fucking Halloween 1. This is a remake, but it's such a terrible remake. It's just, he is so disgusting. This movie has, you see, what's supposed to be teenage tits 3 times in this movie. You have 3 teenage sex scenes in this movie. It's disgusting. I don't want to see teenage tits, even if the actors are 18 or 19 or how old they are. I don't want to see it. I don't want to think I'm looking at underage people have sex in this disgusting film. And there's so much crying and yelling, so much shaky cams, just crying and yelling, crying. It's the only way he can write dialogue. And swearing is the only thing Rob Zombie knows how to do. He's such a terrible director and writer, producer. He just can't do shit, and this is terrible. And I haven't even started talking about the movie. This broke me. I think I said that Halloween 5 broke me. It broke me in another way. And you know what? There's even continuation because the girl who plays Denise in Halloween 4 and 5 is back here. I think that she's called Danielle Harris. She's now playing a teenager. I looked it up. She's pretty much, I think she's in her mid-30s when playing this role, and she's playing one of the teenagers. She's actually playing Laurie Strode because Laurie Strode survives the killing. Michael Myers doesn't kill her. He kills the sister, the stepfather, and the sister's boyfriend. Doesn't kill Laurie Strode, doesn't kill the mom. And I want to go back to all the inconsistencies. So this movie opens in what looks like the 70s. Young Michael Myers, who's played by a terrible actor, I'm sorry to say, he is wearing a Kiss t-shirt. The jackets people are wearing look like at least like very 70s, leather jackets with those manes. Sorry, I forgot what those things are called. Those, fluffy collars and everything. The cars are from the 70s, or at least mostly the 70s. It looks like it's set in the 70s. Only Michael is incarcerated. It's set by Danny Trejo, because of course he's in it. It's said by his character that he took care of Michael Myers for almost 20 years in prison. In the mental asylum. And we see Michael Myers undergoing treatment by Dr. Loomis and his mom while incarcerated. Then 15 years pass, so let's be generous. Let's say he has been incarcerated for 17 years, that they were trying to treat him for 2 years. So even saying that, so Michael Myers is then 27 when he breaks out. That means that 17 years have passed, so we would still be in the early to mid-90s. So this movie came out 2007. This movie, they had 2007 telephones. So the movie starts in the 70s. 15 years pass, or 17 years pass, or whatever, and it's modern day. It's that bad. It's that bad. And Michael Myers, he's supposed to be in his mid-late 20s. Even being very, very generous, he's supposed to be 30. He's played by a 40-year-old man in this film. Even maybe older than 40. And he looks 40 because in the second movie you see his face all the time. And the second film only came out a year or two after this. And it's so... And this copies all the scenes that are good from the first one and just remakes them terribly. So, for example, Michael Myers, the way he gets the hat in this one is that the boyfriend of Laurie Strode puts the hat on to, make a joke during sex. It doesn't work. It's so contrived. It's so goddamn contrived. That's where Michael Myers gets the mask. It is established that he has a thing for masks, but the Michael Myers mask, which does look different in this film, originally it was a slightly altered... sorry, I forgot his name. The guy from Star Trek. It was slightly altered mask that they had just bought and changed a bit and then used. I will put up the name here in the video somewhere. But yeah, he goes into the room, and as in the first one, that's true. John Carpenter did show tits at the first girl, but we don't see a sex scene. So, I don't know. Yes, John Carpenter did it, that's true. We saw some breasts in that scene. He did it to much less extent than Rob Zombie does, but that is something that he actually did copy, and then I have to admit is in the first film. But in this one, he does kill his sister right after she had sex, wearing the mask, making her think, of course, it's the boyfriend. The problem is this movie also. I think this is the first time I've seen this in any movie. The very, very bad idea of shooting the same scene twice. You have the exact same scene take place twice in this film. It's with a girl right after sex listening to Blue Oyster Cult loudly in the 70s or wherever it's supposed to start. She's listening to it with headphones. The other one, she turns on the radio. The radio in 2007, random radio station, plays Blue Oyster Cult Don't Fear the Reaper. And she listens to it. I'm sorry, but there's nothing established in this movie that would suggest that this girl likes 70s rock music. For all intents and purposes, she seems like a normal girl in 2007. They don't listen to 70s rock music, but she enjoys it so much so that she turns on the volume. She has no reason for that scene other than, hey, callback. So the same scene has her listen to the same music twice, has the boyfriend, long-haired boyfriend, get up, go down somewhere, being killed by Michael Myers, then Michael Myers taking on the costume of that person or hiding the identity and then returning to kill the girl. So as we have in the first Halloween movie, we have after sex, glassed guy goes up to get a beer, he's killed, and then Michael Myers shows up wearing a ghost costume. They do the exact same scene here, only that they do it the exact same way it's shot in the scene that Michael Myers kills the sister. So that's what I mean. They had the same scene twice here. And it's really frustrating. And they had the same scene twice. It's to such an extent that they even kind of try to make the guy who's killed while getting beer in modern day, it's try kind of style him after the guy in the original Halloween. So it's just such a weird homage. And had they only remade that scene, but no, they had to do the same scene twice. And I've been repeating myself. I've been saying the same thing twice, more than twice. But it's just to hammer home how bad this idea is. This broke me. I already said that. This movie, and I have so much more to say about it. It's garbage. Okay, so let's backtrack. Still to the early beginning of the movie. I haven't even talked about how Michael Myers breaks out of the prison or out of the mental asylum. So the movie has a few cool ideas. So Michael's obsession with masks. You see his cell, and the walls are just decorated with masks he made himself. Also, after he kills the sister, the entire family except for the mom and Laurie Strode, he has amnesia. He forgot that he did it. And then his mental state just gets worse and worse and worse until he kills a nurse and is locked up for good. So both the mom and the mom, I think, kills herself after that. He kills the nurse, and then Dr. Loomis also gives up on him. And, realizes he's just a monster that can't be helped. So Danny Trejo works as a janitor at this mental asylum that looks incredibly unsanitary. And I think the sad thing is that some mental asylums probably do look like that, but I hope most don't. In this mental asylum, there's this redneck guy who's a rapist who invites his cousin in, and it's established that they often rape these incarcerated women, and it's never discovered because apparently that mental state asylum does not have security cams because reasons. And they enter. Michael Myers in this is played by a wrestler, so he's huge. They enter his cell to mock him by rape the woman in front of him, and he's not really chained up or anything. I think he's slightly chained up, but he can easily break free. And of course, he doesn't kill somebody. Think of the worst way you can write a scene for someone escaping a mental state asylum. Think of the most stupid people you can write into your movie. This movie has it. It's frustratingly bad. And he goes on to murder. He tracks down Laurie. Honestly, I don't really want to talk too much about this. So let's do it quickly. It's so much a remake of the first one and the second film that he goes around killing the different teenagers. And it's just also quite dark. The way people are killed in this movie, it's disgusting. I'm not against gore. It's just not really a nice way to shoot it in this film. It's all because of all the screaming and yelling. I don't know. It's just it makes me mad. It breaks my brain. It has one scene I kind of like, and that's the toilet scene. I'm not gonna say anymore. It's a very short scene, and it's only works because, as I said, Rob Zombie knows how to throw interesting people into his movie and give them small roles. So that's why that works. The rest of the movie absolutely doesn't work. Am I done? Can I please be done with this? I should say that of course, it's the same movie as the first one, so pretty much everything happens in that, just worse. And in the end, she's not saved by Dr. Loomis. I forgot who's supposed to be Laurie Strode because two girls survive the survive the ending of this one. And I think maybe it's not Danielle Harris who's supposed to be Laurie Strode. I think it's the blonde girl who's supposed to be Laurie Strode. But both of them also in the sequel, they are keep being together. So I think the other girl is someone else. I think the other girl's supposed to be the girl in the first one whose father is the sheriff or in the sheriff's department. Anyway, both of them survive, and Laurie Strode ends up killing Michael Myers by shooting him in the head. The scene is okay, and it would have been okay had it not been for it ending with her screaming her lungs out, crying her lungs out. It's just way too much. I'll collect my thoughts before moving on to the next one, also to see if there's something I forgot to mention, because as I said, this movie is so hot garbage that I could probably just go on. I could probably talk 1 hour or more just about how bad this movie is. I'd rather not, but let's see. I think the only thing I forgot to mention is how ugly the film is. So most of it is dark, but also in kind of that bluish way. The sound design is not good. It's not the worst, but it's not good. And I already talked about all the shaky cam, but generally the cinematography, the camera work, there's just nothing appealing about this movie. And I think Rob Zombie kind of likes making ugly films. I don't know if it's on purpose, but all his movies are ugly. Even I think I kind of like The Devil's Rejects, but that's also an ugly film. I don't know if he just likes slug so much that he makes it ugly on purpose, or if he's so incompetent that it ends up this way either way. And I think that's what, and I will also talk about this with the second one from the Halloween 2 from 2009. That I think what frustrates me, there are movies that are bad, like Halloween 2, 4 and 5. Those movies are bad, but it's kind of just because they're dull. And I don't know, the fifth one is also because of child acting. But then there's a movie like this where it kind of seems like it's bad on purpose, but not because someone tried to make it so bad it's good a movie or anything like that, just because the people making it have such a poor, disgusting taste in movies and in how to make movies that what they end up making is just purposefully horrendous, distasteful. That they like. I wrote this down for the second film, but I can just say it now. Rob Zombie feels like an old man trying to be as edgy as possible. Like it's pathetically edgy. It feels like one man just his only direction instruction is just, oh, edgy, 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 make this edgy, more edgy, more edgy. Oh, I want that edginess. Like he so desperately tries to be cool in his own way. And I think, I mean, the only reason why he can make movies is because he has a successful music career that allows him to spend money on these movies. And I also forgot to mention that his wife I think she's one of the actresses I hate the most of all actresses, because she's always overacting. She's always given way too much screen time. And the only reason why she has a career is because her husband has all the money to make these movies, because she has absolutely no talent. And every time she's on screen, she chews the scenery in all the worst ways. Subtlety is not a word she knows. She's just, oh man, she's just, her screen presence is terrible. I think I might be a bit too harsh on her. I think it also just because she's in these bad movies, made by someone who has a very bad taste in movies. But honestly, I never seen her give a performance that I liked. I think the only reason why she kind of works in Devil's Rejects is because her character is supposed to be so oddly terrible and over the top that it doesn't frustrate you that much. But she is always so gross, so annoying, so yeah, that's you don't like to see her. So the only reason why she works in a movie is if you are not supposed to like to see her. In this movie, she's playing the mom. You're supposed to have sympathy for her, but you don't like to see her in this movie as well. And I would say her performance in this is actually not absolutely horrendous, only in the very opening. In Halloween 2, she becomes obnoxious. So let's talk about Halloween 2 now, from 2009. I had to take a break between talking about the first Rob Zombie movie and talking about the second one, just to gather some thoughts. Because honestly, and I did a lot of thinking, this is not just pulled out of my ass. I think the second Rob Zombie movie is the worst movie I've seen at least within the last year. And that means if you've seen other videos on my channel, you know what kind of bad movies I watch. So one thing that does make it different is a lot of the bad movies I watch are just boring and uninspired. This one tries to do something, and it tries so hard to do something. The problem is what it tries to do is so bad. And I would say the same about the first Rob Zombie movie, only the first Rob Zombie movie is a remake. The sequel is just all over the place and has nothing to do with Halloween. Well, it does. It's not like Halloween 3, but it has nothing to do with the established story of Michael Myers. It's really something different. And for all my criticism, at least Rob Zombie creates something different. It might be absolutely terrible, in my opinion, but he has some ideas. He has some inspiration. He has something he wants to create. That and he's not trying to please anyone but himself. Probably he doesn't. He makes movies that just appeals to what he would like to make, and that is cool in a way. That there are people with the money who do that. It's just not movies you should necessarily watch, because yes, that means it's even worse than the first Rob Zombie Halloween movie. So yeah, I do have some positive things to say about it, and those are mostly in the beginning, and even then they are surrounded or they are encircled and ambushed and whatever you can say about all the bad things. But this, like Halloween 2, is a direct sequel. You follow what happens right after the first one ends. So Michael Myers is picked up by an ambulance and driven away. Of course, he escapes. And already the dialogue is fuck, 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 shit, 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 racism, 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 sexist joke, crying, 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 yelling, yelling. That's the same dialogue as the first one, probably even worse in this one, and that's all you're gonna get. Hysterical crying, bad acting. Only one performance in this one is slightly likable. Everybody is terrible, especially the lead actress. Danielle Harris is not good either, but the lead actress and her friend are frustratingly terrible. I don't know if they have a career. If they don't, I understand why. If they do, it's probably Rob Zombie's fault or whoever directed them and gave them the lines. But yeah, they are below C tier. They should, I don't know where he gets the actors. I mean, maybe his wife hires them, just make sure no one plays better than her, which would actually be very easy to do. But yeah, I should start back. So yeah, it opens and then both Danielle Harris and Laurie Strode are taken away to another hospital where they're stitched together. I mean, they do end up the first movie with quite a few injuries, so they do need like quite a bit of stitching. And Michael Myers then escapes that car wreck and then walks to the hospital. So they have at least, I think, it's not really established. I think it's the same night, it's just really quick operation. So a few hours later, and Laurie Strode is so battered that when she walks around the halls there are nobody in halls. It's a really empty hospital. I don't know. Also seems a bit weird. She's holding this was it the IV set? You know, the thing with the bag and everything that drops into her and looks very big and clunky on her. I think there might even be some computers on it or something. So she holds on to that the whole way. And I think the only good thing about this movie is the opening here where Michael Myers hunts her in the hospital. Yes, we did get that at the ending of the first Halloween, the Halloween 2. But the difference is here that she's so battered and it's very difficult for her to escape. And she comes across some nice deaths, some that are really well made. And there's a really stupid death. I'll put some pictures in here where this lady, she walks around and then when Laurie Strode approaches her, she turns around and reveals that she's actually been cut in the face but hasn't realized it yet. But there's no way that could have happened the way it happened in the film. It's just one of those really stupid things that's only for surprise and shock effects for the audience to create cool visual. Which, you know, that's what Rob Zombie does. He doesn't care about logic or creating a believable universe or any like coherent world building. He just wants cool visuals and cool ideas that are cool to him. So you have that. And she walks around, she escapes the hospital and ends up being protected by some old guy, but Michael Myers breaks in. And here I already have one absolutely huge problem with this movie. It cuts to 1 year later. The last thing we see is Michael Myers breaking in and about to hit her. Cut to 1 year later. We don't know what happened. We don't know how she escaped. It might even be implied that it was a dream because she wakes up. But what happened at that hospital did happen in the movie, from what I gather. So when it became a dream sequence and when it didn't, if that's the case, it's not really told to the audience. It's one of those absolutely... Rob Zombie painted himself into a corner and just decided to ignore it. Imagine if you watch Jaws and the last thing you see is that guy being swallowed up by the shark at the very end of the movie, and then the next thing you see is the beginning of Jaws 2. It's that level of terrible movie making that this film is full of. And I should also mention, at this point you also know it has already established that there will be dream sequences or visions or whatever it is, because it has recast. Now, this is how it opens. It opens with back at the ward where Michael Myers' mother talks to Michael Myers about something that symbolism. This movie is full of symbolism. It talks about like the white horse symbolizing violence you don't release or something. And that's just an image throughout the movie. And they recast Michael. This movie was made 2 years later, but they got another kid to play Michael Myers, young Michael Myers in this movie, because of course they did. I know. I can understand. I mean, one thing is he's not a good actor, but doesn't seem like Rob Zombie cares about that. I can understand why he wouldn't want to return for this movie. That he saw what terrible film he had been in and just realized, okay, I shouldn't do this. Acting is not for me. At least not with Rob Zombie. I think maybe that's what happened. So yes, right after Michael Myers escapes the ambulance and has killed the crew, he walks down the road in the middle of the night, and there is his mother all lit up, like she's all white with this white horse. And that becomes the theme of this film. So this film, it seems like Michael Myers does not have an agency anymore, that he's led by his mother and has dream sequences not just with his mother but also his younger self, where he's directed to do what he does. Yeah, that's what happens quite a lot, actually. But there will be some time before we see that again, because Laurie Strode wakes up, she has nightmares, she's haunted by what she went through a year before, which makes sense. She's now with Daniel Harris living with a foster family, where the father, from what I gather, is either a sheriff or works at the sheriff department. Again, as I said, like the second film. And oh yeah, I guess it's just the father of Daniel Harris they now live with. So yeah, that makes sense. So she's going through therapy. She works at this hippie shop where they're very big hippies and they like listening to the music that Rob Zombie likes to listen to. Everybody does in this film. Yeah. And what happens? Sorry, a lot happens in this movie, but my brain tries to forget it. There's not room enough in my brain to fill it with this kind of disaster. I think the next scene we get is Michael Myers going to the strip club his mother worked at, and the strip club still has on the main sign and much of their advertisement, they have the mother. So at this point, it might even be 15, 20 years ago she last worked at that strip club, and they still use her in the advertisement. It's oh my god. And of course the mother directs him to kill them to enact revenge. So we have these sleazy people being killed off. That scene is not terrible again. It's Rob Zombie hiring people and and directing people and giving them lines. So all the dialogue is terrible. None of them are sympathetic. You don't want anything to do with them. It's just frustrating. And before this, you had your scenes. So the guy who owns the brothel, the strip club, it dresses up as Frankenstein's monster and tells children, performs for children, but telling them like raunchy jokes. And Laurie Strode really likes that, but then she has this panic attack in the middle of everything. And I should note here that, and I think when I realized this, it made me angry, and just made me realize how petty and narcissistic a person Rob Zombie is. because Laurie Strode in this film dresses up and has pretty much the same hair as Rob Zombie does in real life. So he's trying to think, oh, how should my main star in this movie look like? How should this cool girl who overcomes her difficulties and is struggling with a lot of things, but is still cool and she fought off Michael Myers, how should she dress? How should she deal with her problems? I guess she should just look like me. That's the kind of director and writer Rob Zombie is. The kind of person who just wants to see himself in the movie, who's so full of himself that he has a woman dress up as him. It's absolutely disgusting, honestly. It's insane. The level of narcissism. Oh, I really don't want to talk more about this movie, but I have to. There are a lot of establishing shots that now Michael Myers, he's being beaten by hillbillies, but then kills them. And Michael Myers is not wearing a mask anymore most of the time, so you can see he has a beard. And he walks around a bit like a QAnon caveman. And you have these establishing shots where he walks across a field, just walking to Haddonfield. Because the big reason why he goes to Haddonfield this time, it does not seem to be that he wants to kill Laurie Strode, although that's a part of it, but not really, because that takes a completely different turn. It's because Dr. Loomis is now an asshole. Dr. Loomis walks around with sunglasses, looking cool, talking shit. He even says the word fucking, which, thinking about Donald Pleasance, Dr. Loomis, is pretty much the biggest insult to him. He was a bit mad. He was suffering from PTSD from what had happened, but he was, this professional doctor who was trying to be as rational as he could in the situation. He was well spoken. To see him degenerated to this businessman, Dr. Loomis now tries to just use the story to sell books and becomes a pseudo celebrity. This horrible piece of shit, and that's just the okay. Again, yes, it's interesting to take the not just to do what everybody else did, but to take the figure or the character in a different direction. But it's also an insult to see Dr. Loomis treated this way. And his career dies in a scene where he's on this talk show where Weird Al Yankovic is there, and they kind of make fun of Dr. Loomis there. Not that I think Weird Al is given 1 or 2 lines, and they're really short, and it's really not. It's sad that they don't use that talent of his more. And his career is over. And at that point, he realizes what he has done and has to try and save the situation, which is such a quick change in character motivation that it really is unbelievable. Again, going back to what has happened, Laurie Strode has more panic attacks and more dreams. She dreams that she's Michael Myers and is wearing the mask he wore in the first movie, the clown mask, and kills Daniel Harris. And then she has these epileptic episodes, and you see these frames coming in of her with an inverted cross in her face and blood, and you see a window written on Alice Cooper, itchy, it's very itchy. Everything is itchy and dark. And of course she's possessed by the soul of Michael Myers. It's in her blood to kill. This insanely bad way of making a film. And I think you might read this on paper and think that is not the worst idea. But when you see how it's done in the film, the camera work, the acting, the over the top, the itchiness, the everything, it's really, really bad. And then it's a cut with this picture of Michael Myers' mother, who's kind of praying like she's not praying, but she's kind of this deity performing a ritual to mind control the daughter. And the thing is, that happens later in the movie. That's one of the next scenes is a big Halloween party, where suddenly she appears on stage, and Laurie Strode can see her and young Michael, and they kind of try and possess her. So this movie established that Michael Myers is supernatural, or at least the universe is supernatural. And the other movies kind of played with it. It's in her blood, it's in her DNA, or whatever, to kill, just as it was with Michael Myers. Which movie was it that did that? That was a Halloween 4. Whereas this film is just, it's bonkers. It goes as far as it can to establish something wacky and symbolic and whatever, and it's ugly and terrible while doing it. And you basically just have all these terrible scenes, that the Halloween party, terrible sex scenes, terrible kills. You have actually one, and That's just really grimy and disgusting because at one point, Michael Myers traps Daniel Harris in a room in her house, and her mother tells him to have fun with her. So you don't see what happens, you see the aftermath where she's naked, absolutely covered in blood, and the walls are just sprayed with blood. So he might have taken off her clothes and raped her and killed her. It's just really disgusting. Again, actually, I don't hate it. I think what I hate about it is the influence of the mother and everything. I think it's not bad just because it's an over the top kill. I would like that in other movies, just because I don't like the movie, so it doesn't really feel earned. Some other more people are killed. Yeah, I really want to go to the ending, which is very soon. This is a 2 hour movie. This is a 2 hour movie. I don't want to talk about it for that long. Getting to the end, it's again batshit insane in all the worst cases ways. They go to this abandoned hut where Dr. Loomis confronts Michael Myers, but also confronts young Michael Myers and the mother. And he's then thrown through the wall by Michael Myers, who's trying to kill her, the police have arrived. And just as Halloween 4 ended, he's just taking out on a hill of what is it? Hail of Blaze? Blaze of Glory? No, he's shot to pieces without his mask, and he has this big beard. Looks like as I said, like a homeless QAnon, I guess. And out steps Laurie Strode, that's now fully possessed and very pale, and she grabs a knife and goes to kill Dr. Loomis. Like everybody thinks it's Dr. Loomis' fault that Michael Myers is back. Again, I don't know. Is it? If it is, the movie didn't tell me. The movie just tells me through other people saying like it's the biggest exposition dialogue in the world. This movie is so poorly written. She's shot, and I guess she dies. So she wakes up in a white bed in a white hallway, sees her mother come in with a white horse, and she smiles menacingly. The end. I think if you want to torture yourself, if you really are curious about how bad a movie can be, and how unpleasantly bad a movie can be, and frustratingly bad, and how bad acting can ruin an entire thing. Well, bad directing, bad sound design. Well, again, sound design is not terrible. Bad cinematography, dialogue, ideas. You should watch these two movies. The two Rob Zombie Halloween movies are pretty much pure torture. I going through the fifth installment made me more angry because of the over the top child acting. It is more pleasant, I guess, to see an adult scream and cry than it is to see a horrible child actor scream and cry. But that's all I can say. I don't think the fifth one is a worse movie than this. It's just in some ways equally unpleasant. So 3 movies left. 3 movies left. And I think I need a break. I need to clear my head of the filth I just watched. Okay, it's over. I can talk about something else now. I can talk about the Halloween sequel called Halloween 2018. And this is not a remake, in case you were wondering. This is a direct sequel to the first film. And it even plays a lot on all the stupid things that happened since then. There is, because Jamie Lee Curtis is back playing Laurie Strode. I shouldn't start like this, but they're playing for like this where now Laurie Strode has a daughter, and the daughter has a daughter, and the daughter's a group of friends, a bit quirky people. They're talking about the murders. That yeah, they happened all this time ago, so people still not completely don't remember all the details. It has been 40 years, but then one brings up, hey, wasn't there something like that? He was the daughter of, sorry, the brother of this or that, and weren't they related? No, it's just someone made it up. So it does kind of. I just like how the meta commentary on the other movies are used in this film, just to completely try and create something new that's also based on the original. And overall, I think they are very successful at that. But let me start from the beginning because I also like the opening of it. It's kind of a nice way to bring it into a new, a new decade, I guess, a new era. So it opens up with these British podcasters who make this true crime podcast, and they get to interview Michael Myers in the psychiatric hospital, and the establishing shots are quite nice. They're having this big quadrant where the mentally insane or mentally ill are allowed to stand inside a square. You should not approach the square. So you see these different kind of insane people, and that kind of works well. So there are two podcast people. There's this kind of quiet woman who's a bit nice, and the other guy is, kind of a douchebag, and he tries to provoke Michael Myers to talk to him. So he has gotten the mask from the forensic lab, wherever it's stored, your evidence locker, I guess. So he was allowed to borrow it, and he shows it to Michael Myers, the original mask, and it still doesn't provoke an answer. And then it cuts to the opening, and it actually uses the original opening with a pumpkin, but in a different way. So the other ones had this pumpkin slowly dissolving into something more sinister. This one has a pumpkin inflating into a real pumpkin with a knife for a nose. And I kind of like, again, taking something original, taking a good idea, changing it a bit. That's kind of how you show homage, but also create something new. And yeah, there's a lot of that in this movie. And yes, I will talk about it. So we also then see, after this, they visit Laurie Strode, who is revealed to live in this very secluded house where she has this huge fence, and it's, stay off my property, whatever. She is not very happy about having them there. They pay her, I think it's $10,000 to have an interview with her. And they have the interview. They try to provoke a response from her. Like, she believes, that he is pure evil, that he is the boogeyman, that, there is nothing good in him. And they try to, they would really like her to meet him or to talk about him. And these things that media people do to get better content, they try to do that on her, and she's not having it. And ends the interview just pretty much wasting most of the money. Also, good opening, because it turns out that Laurie Strode is still deeply traumatized by the events. So if you think about Laurie Strode in H2O, that's nothing compared to this. Laurie Strode's life in this film is completely destroyed. She is an old lady living in this top security house. Her relationship with her daughter is completely ruined, as she lost the custody when she was 12. The daughter was 12, because she was basically taking this daughter out of school to teach her how to shoot and how to survive and everything. So she has this panic room in her basement and this shooting range in her backyard. That's actually quite scary. That shooting range is used kind of as a jump scare in a later scene, which is a very nice setup. And she just has this huge weapon collection. It kind of reminded me a bit of, what is his name? Andy. I think Andy from the Chucky series in the Curse of Chucky. No, sorry, Cult of Chucky, where Randy says, "Oh yeah." Andy says, "I have a few weapons at home," and then you see there's just a huge locker full of weapons, and she kind of does the same. It's a nice way of presenting her character and what has happened this time, and then you're presented with the daughter and her family, and she's having a sweet family life of. There's the daughter, the teenage daughter, who's a bit rebellious, who likes the grandmother and wants to have a closer relationship with her. Then there's the father, who's a bit clumsy, but also sweet. You already from the very beginning you like these people, which again is actually not that common in horror movies, at least, especially of the movies that I've been talking about. You want these people to thrive. Turns out it's the daughter's birthday. It's Friday the 13th. Sorry, no, that's a different movie. It's the 30th of October, and it's the daughter's birthday, and she wanted the mom, who's called Karen, by the way, she wanted Karen to invite Laurie Strode to the birthday party. She didn't, and she lies about it. And of course, the daughter finds out because she meets with Laurie Strode later on, because, Laurie Strode wants to give her a present, and she's invited anyway. Okay, how can I try to make this shorter? And it's just this show, these family dynamics become quite important in the movie, and that's why I'm talking about them. And they are good. They are not bad drama or just plot filler. It actually works. In the meantime, the 30th also happens to be the day where Michael Myers is transferred from one psychiatric hospital to another, and he goes on a regular prisoner transfer bus, as you see them in the movies. And he is accompanied by I would say the new Dr. Loomis. So he's a new psychiatrist who has a great interest in him. And then we cut to this family following. There's this father and son having fun. I think they've been out hunting. And they're having a good time. They come across this crashed bus, and with these mentally ill people walking around. And dad goes to investigate, doesn't come back. So the son goes to investigate, comes across the new Dr. Loomis and accidentally shoots him because he's so terrified. Goes back to the car and he's killed by Michael Myers. So Michael Myers kills children in this one. It's back to that good old Michael Myers that is horrifying. We don't need any understanding of why he's a monster. He just is. And yeah, so let me speed it up a bit. The next few scenes have the police arrive at this crash site. There is this new policeman or old policeman who turns out to have been involved in what's is essentially what would have happened in the sequel to the first Halloween movie. So at the same night, the policemen are all out hunting Michael Myers, and they fail to get him. No, sorry, no, they do get him, but some people accidentally killed, and one of them is killed because he accidentally shoots him. So he feels guilty. He also has this trauma with Michael Myers. I think this might actually only be revealed in the second film, or it might be maybe it is revealed in this one. But anyway, everybody's traumatized by this event. There's this new police commissioner, this sheriff. Sorry, he's the sheriff. He's this African American no nonsense guy, but not no nonsense in the 80s way. He's just, a cool character. He's not in it that much, but I do like him when he's on screen. And yeah, and the daughter has a few friends. They're all a bit quirky. She has this, the hot guy at the high school. Who's kind of a douchebag, but also not an unredeemable one. He does kiss another girl and she sees it for this Halloween party, but it's not terrible. She kind of wants to forgive him, but all these things happen in between, and he regrets it. But he's also again actually being a very big douchebag towards her. So there's that. It's yeah, teenage drama as it should be, and there's this pathetic guy who is really just friend zoned by her, and he thinks he has a shot with her because the boyfriend kissed another girl and she won't have it, and he's drunk and he gets killed in a very effective scene. And he also stalks her other friends, and there's a callback to the ghost, the ghost costume from the first film. But this time it's just a corpse that's hidden behind it. There's the babysitter, so again another callback, and that babysitter is babysitting this new kid that is, normally I don't like kids in movies. It's probably well established now. That kid is cool. I really like that kid. So that's nice. It comes to the ending. Sorry, no, I should. That's actually an important thing. Turns out that the new Dr. Loomis is a maniac. So I think it's heavily implied that he was the reason the bus crashed, because he didn't die. He was shot, but not fatally. So he's wounded, but he wants to pursue Michael Myers, and he thinks he can kind of use Michael Myers. He wants to put him out in the environment to see what happens, so he can use him as a test subject. So that's why he probably let the bus crash. And when the police officer drives into Michael Myers and is about to shoot him and kill him, the doctor just stabs him, and they're both, so he's pretty much just on the ground dying. And then we have the doctor driving away, and he kidnapped the daughter and has them reveal where Laurie Strode lives. So he shows up there, and he thinks, that, we can use this as as I said, like to test the insanity of this person, what happens with such a wild person in the wild. But, Michael Myers being Michael Myers just straight up kills that guy. Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry, I forgot to say. He also kills some reporters. He kills a lot of people. The kill count is quite high in this movie, and most of the kills are quite good, even the ones that happen off screen. Anyway, big showdown in the house. What we've all been waiting for, because we know that this house is full of weapons. It's the house of a woman who has prepared for this her whole life. So it turns out the whole house is just one big trap for this final encounter with Michael Myers. So there are trapdoors. Not trapdoors. Like every room can be locked off individually, and it's just really cool. And there's a good shootout, and they have some other callbacks too that I won't really spoil. I know I'm really spoiling a lot, but it ends up with Michael Myers trapped in the basement while they set it on fire, and they escape the house. But as they flee, her, the mom, and the daughter. Oh yeah, so. It also is important that by the end of the film, the mom kind of understands why Laurie Strode did what she did, and she finds her childhood lessons back, like all the things she was taught about survival. So she does end up being good at fooling Michael Myers and shoots at him, something that took some time for her to get back to. Like the whole movie, she's kind of in denial, so much so that it ends up with the husband dying and everything. So a lot of hard lessons to learn in this movie. When they're driving away, they see a fire truck heading towards the house, and that's how it ends. I kind of don't wouldn't have want to rush talking about this much, but this video is already really long because, quite honestly, this is the best Michael Myers Halloween movie and the best Halloween movie after Halloween 3. It is thoroughly enjoyable. The kills are good. The story is good. There aren't really many things that are stupid about it. It has, lovable characters, good plot development. It has a lot of talking and a lot of slow moments, but the movie never feels slow because it keeps building up. So it does a lot of things from the right. The first one did, only that it has a bigger budget and it has more creative ideas. It has more gratuitous violence. Overall, I think it is better than the first movie. But and it's also just a solid sequel to it. I like it. I really liked it, and that is why I had high hopes for Halloween Kills. So right off the bat, I would like to say that Halloween Kills from 2021 is a very different movie from the first one. Not fundamentally different, but the focus is very different. This one is more about mob mentality and about social trauma or shared trauma. So that's why when I said before that we get the sheriff's traumatic backstory in the previous film, that's not true. We actually get in the opening of this one. And basically this movie is about all the people who are affected by the killings 40 years ago. And also about how a lot of people have forgotten or didn't even know that it had happened. A lot of this, the problem is with this, the story is a bit confused. It's not really well. I'm not even sure it's confused. It's not told that well. It's kind of a bit. It feels a tiny bit ham-fisted. This idea of trauma and these, Halloween dies tonight is the slogan from the film. And honestly, I think it's a bit too much. It feels so. One of them, I think his name is Thomas Doyle. He was also in one of the other movies. The way his experience was tied into the events was that he was bullied out in the streets by some guys, and then Michael Myers shows up and he panics and passes out. And then when he wakes up, Michael Myers has just walked by. That's his trauma. His trauma is that he saw Michael Myers. It's not that he was in close contact with anyone who died, that he had done anything else, but his trauma, maybe it's not Thomas Doyle, maybe Thomas Doyle is still the Thomas Doyle from the first one, but one of them, his trauma is just that he witnessed Michael Myers and he survived, and he has huge trauma for this. So every Halloween, he meets with the other survivors and they drink. And suddenly, because the news break that this bus had crashed, this transport had crashed, and that there are still two who are unaccounted for who have escaped. So they get this idea that they need to track them down. They mobilize all the people at the bar, at least most of them, to do something about it, because one of them is then seen stealing a car from the bar's parking area, and they confront him and he drives away. So they decide to make patrols to hunt Michael Myers, basically. That's the main part of the story. And it seems like the previous movie was, yes, it did have some commentary, but mostly it was just a good story that it wanted to tell. This one tries to be deeper, while also being a slasher, and while also not really having all the drama, family drama, and whatever that kind of worked in the first movie, doesn't really work in this one. Overall, I didn't think this was a very effective movie. And I think what does work about it is actually most of the scenes that don't focus on this mob mentality thing, but the things that happen around it, or as a result of it, to some extent. So yes, it opens with the boyfriend discovering the corpse of the friend zone guy, and then he discovers the police officer that was attacked by the new Dr. Loomis in the previous film. It turns out he isn't dead, so yeah, he tells him the backstory because of course it does when he's about there, bleeding out. He wants to tell the backstory. Not that he dies, he gets helped back to the hospital, and at the hospital, he encounters Loomis. Not Loomis, Laurie Strode. Laurie Strode believes Michael Myers is dead. But the daughter now, not Karen, but the teenage daughter now starts to believe that actually, maybe it's not over, because at the hospital, corpses start rolling in. So there's some sign that something might still be going on. Meanwhile, we have all these locals who run around or drive around patrols with weapons trying to find Michael Myers, and those who do come across him even though they outnumber him, they're completely destroyed. And those scenes are fairly effective, generally speaking. It does have two lovable characters, very quirky, kind of unrealistic, but because they're so quirky and unrealistic and continue to be that way, it starts to feel all welcome. It kind of goes on for too long. It's like a joke, an idea that just drags on for too long. It's a male homosexual couple, two guys called John, one being Big John and the other being Little John. One of them is taller than the other one, and that's the Little John, so I assume they might refer to something else. And it's a very nice couple. It's very fun and it's cute. You do have some really good scenes with them. But then it kind of becomes too much when Michael Myers is inside the house and they walk around trying to find him and they split up. And I don't know, it's something that works that turns into something that no longer really works. It's not exactly that how they decide to escalate the situation between these two overshadows the good aspects of how they were introduced, but it kind of is a bit too much. It doesn't really feel like it belongs to this movie, and I would also say something that is nice, but also not all the time, is that the violence in this one is slightly toned down, while also having a bigger impact in a way. In the previous one, the violence it looked good, but it was also nasty. Like it didn't glorify violence. And I think this one goes even more in that direction. That the violence that happens is almost traumatic, and you don't necessarily see much, but what you do see is scary. It's unnerving. The problem is that the last scene, I kind of both like it and don't like it. Interestingly shot. I do like that they went for something different. I can just say, well, the scene is that Michael Myers, he's caught by the mob, and they beat him and shoot him, and they think he's dead. But then he rises. It intercuts, film shoots back and forth between him and the family, and other people talking about the character of Michael Myers. That he's not just someone you can stop; he's a monster. He's cornered by these people, and then he gets up and then he kills them all. And the way it's shot is a bit artistic, but also in a way where you actually don't see that much. I don't know. The thing is, I don't dislike the scene. I just think having that scene and then having another scene like that, it is a murder spree, but it's just a murder spree done minimalistically. That those two things are just. It's not an oxymoron. It's not two concepts that can't coexist. But that's kind of how it is in my mind. that when you see a murder spree, you kind of want to see the murder spree. You don't want them to shy away from it. But then again, I admire that they do that. I should also say that we actually do get an effective murder spree early on, because the previous films ended with Michael Myers being trapped in the burning house, but then the firemen show up and they actually end up kind of rescuing him unwittingly just in time for him to escape and not die, and he kills them all. And I would say the reason why I say it's effective is, again, it actually doesn't show that much because it's so dark. And it's a bit chaotic, but it is also quite cool. I did like that scene. So it's not that we don't get any murder sprees in this one. We actually get quite a few. Also, I should have structured this better. Talking about the shared trauma. The intro is no longer just one pumpkin. It's multiple pumpkins on fire. So, this is the shared experience. That this is having one family's tragedy turning into a larger tragedy. And that's what they focus on. And then why I also say that it kind of has this message about mob mentality is that it turns out that the guy they've all been hunting down, like they have maybe 100 or more people running after him into the hospital where he ends up, is that it's one of the other escaped patients of the insane asylum. So he ends up, he's innocent. Laurie Strode realizes he's innocent, so he tries to gather the family around saving him, but they don't. It's not that the mob gets to him and kills him, it's that he commits suicide. Which leads to this somber moment where the mob kind of realize that they were in the wrong. But then, they actually go to find Michael Myers. So they don't realize that they're that much in the wrong, that maybe they should let the authorities do it. They have this scene where they say, we don't longer believe the authorities. We don't think they can handle it because they haven't handled it before. They haven't prevented this disaster. That's true, but maybe you shouldn't give in to mob mentality. That's the whole dilemma, if you would call it that, of this film. And it ends up, I think it is in the Laurie Strode's house. maybe even the old Michael Myers house. I forgot if that's no, sorry. The homosexual couple live in Michael Myers' house, and they're aware of that. It's also used quite neat in a scene. And then at the end of this movie, right after that murder spree, we see Karen, Laura Strode's daughter, die, and that's it. That's how it ends. Overall, I didn't dislike the film, but I liked Halloween from 2018 so much that this was disappointing. Again, I don't dislike that they go in a different direction. I just don't think it was that successful. I will not go as far as to try and dissuade anyone from seeing this. So if you liked Halloween, I think you could go ahead and watch this one as well. But I will say that you might not enjoy it. And I personally have no reason to go back and rewatch it. I don't think I really didn't have a high level of enjoyment. I didn't get a lot of enjoyment from this. And honestly, the way this leads up to Halloween Ends, or rather the way it doesn't lead up to Halloween Ends, disappointed me. Actually kind of had me dumbfounded. So Halloween Ends came out in 2022. And if I didn't know any better, I wouldn't have thought it would be the same people behind it as who did the last two movies. Also, maybe I wouldn't even think that it was a Halloween film, because this is a very big departure, and I just have to talk about it for you to understand it. So already from the beginning, the movie doesn't tell how Michael Myers escaped the situation in the first film. All understand is he went into hiding. So, the entire town is on high alert. Police force is out to get him. He just killed a bunch of people. But lo and behold, he goes into hiding for 3 years, because this movie takes place 3 years after the first one. Well, after the last two ones that took place over one night. And also, it opens up with a new character, Corey, who is actually our new protagonist in a way. So it opens up with him. He's the new babysitter. It's 2019, so a year after the killings. And he's the babysitter for this rich family who has this terrible kid who locks him in, and as an accident trying to break free while babysitting him, he ends up killing him. He falls down several floors and dies. So it wasn't by purpose. It wasn't on purpose that he ended up killing him. He is blamed by the mother for murdering him. The father of the child doesn't really blame him. He thinks it was an accident. And fast forward 3 years, he is now a recluse. He is hiding from everyone. He is a recluse. Basically, he seems really depressed and introverted. We established when we saw him first that he was a smiling young guy, kind of looked like most young people, some who has a bright future to look forward to. And now he is nothing of his former self. He works at his father's repair shop. He's a mechanic, I guess. So, he is just living this life that of constant regret, it would seem, and a constant shame. He then comes across Laurie Strode, and the thing is, I don't know if they have a relationship. I don't think they do. So they've been living in the same town for 3 years. This is a small town, as established by how in the previous film, everybody in the town has this shared trauma. So it's a small enough town for everything to be connected. But they have never really interacted before. But she saves him from some bullies. And already here, I realized why I had a big problem with this movie. It doesn't feel real. Nothing about the world building feels real. We actually have this terrible casting again, where everybody is a stereotype. No person or no group dynamic. Nothing feels believable in this movie. And whereas the previous two movies had good acting, this one, maybe it has good acting, but the terrible casting and terrible direction distorts it. So he's approached by these 4 bullies, high school bullies, and they just look like they're from 4 different movies. One of them, this African-American girl, is dressed up in this school band uniform. Then there's a guy who looks like he's from the Antwoord. Then there's the jock, and then there's this overweight, boring girl who's also part of the group. Like, they're 4 completely different people. At what high school do 4 people like this hang out? I mean, yes, given it has been quite a few years since I went to high school, and I have never been to an American high school, so I don't know if people who dress up these different ways and who act these different ways can be friends. Maybe they can. Maybe it's hyper realistic, and I don't know. but it feels completely unbelievable. It feels like, yes, you take a jock, a nerd, a goth, and a cheerleader, and they all have to be best friends, and you have to believe that it's established relationship. It just doesn't work. And it's not the first time this movie does this. It also has this radio DJ who's straight up from the 70s. And he talks and acts in the most unnatural way. He's a movie character, but not just a movie character. He is straight out from 70s, 80s B movie. And he's in this universe. What more? Back to the story. So, having been beaten up a bit by these bullies, he meets Laurie Strode's daughter. I guess the main themes of this movie is moving along, putting traumas behind you, finding new meaning in life. I think those are the main lessons from this movie. Only if they make no sense. Because the only people this is relevant to is Laurie Strode's and the granddaughter. Because Laurie Strode is actually kind of a normal grandmother in this movie. She has put her trauma behind her. She's trying to write a book to get it all out of her system. There's hints of romance with the police officer from the other movies, the one who is wounded. And I don't know why the daughter gets interested in Corey. Maybe it's because they both have trauma that they're dealing with. So she's attracted to someone who's damaged so she can feel more normal. Because a lot of people are blaming the Strode's family for being responsible for the murders, that they were the ones attracting Michael Myers, they were taunting Michael Myers and causing him to commit these murders, and maybe they will move forward, but some people are still traumatized. The problem is, the movie has two plots. There's the sequel plot that's minimal. It has very little to do with this movie. And then there's the new Corey plot. The Corey plot is terrible. I have no idea how they could write something so bad, because it goes for... So he's shown as being accidentally killing someone and feeling terrible about it. That's how his character is established. He also has a controlling mom and a caring father, but who is not really capable of really helping him that much. That's how he's presented to the audience. Then the bullies attack him after he has an argument with the daughter, having the argument that, you will never be able to understand me, and, you will never be able to... He feels like he is her project for trying to fix him and turn him normal and cure his trauma, and that it will never be possible, and that the traumas aren't comparable. So they have this interesting dynamic that actually could work on paper, it just doesn't really do it in the film. And then he is pushed over a bridge by accident by the bullies, ends up in the sewer system, I guess, or at least somewhere underneath. No, sorry, it's not the sewer, it's just underneath the bridge. Is approached by Michael Myers, is allowed to escape, and immediately upon escaping, and now it's day, by the way, immediately upon escaping, a homeless guy approaches him, saying, "Oh, Michael Myers let you live," and he's just, insane, and then the homeless man just wants to murder him, so in self-defense he kills the homeless man. And from here on out, he is turned into a serial killer who enjoys killing. This is some of the worst character writing I've ever seen. This is... So are we supposed to believe that the fact that Michael Myers didn't kill him turned him into a serial killer? Are we supposed to believe that it was because he was bullied that now he wants to kill people? Or are we supposed to believe that now that he killed one person, he wants to kill more, like he has a bloodthirst? But if that's the case, why didn't he develop a bloodthirst after the first kid? So yeah, in my opinion, and feel free to correct me, I actually really want to know if this was well established, because to me this seems like lazy, bad writing. This is bad. This is Rob Zombie level bad, or maybe even worse. And I was so disappointed and sad that the people who made the Halloween from 2018 could make this crap. It's not that the movie is all bad, it's just a terrible sequel. And also... It's a terrible sequel because it partly isn't a sequel. We even have scenes where he teams up with Michael Myers and goes on a murder spree with him, like they're buddying up to each other, which... Why? What the fuck is this? Why does Michael Myers want to hang out with this kid? And he ends up killing the kid anyway. This is so confusing. And Michael Myers, where has he been for 3 years? What is his motivation anymore? Why is he still in Haddonfield? How he's been living under that bridge for 3? It's insane how the writers just ignored all logic and all possible questions the audience might have, and just try to make a movie where you are. It's a movie for dumb people, I guess. It's a movie for stupid people who don't ask questions. But then it's trying to be intelligent, so that's also not true. But yeah, anyway, so Laurie Strode realizes that he's a bad guy, and she tries to protect her daughter against him because she's trying to run away with him. He ends up with this confrontation where first he teams up with Michael Myers and kills those teenagers that bullied him. And those kills are actually quite effective. That's one thing I will say about this movie. Many of the kills are really good. And it has Laurie Strode's fooling him, and although she gains the upper hand, he fakes the situation to make it look like she killed him. Right as the daughter walks in, and the daughter then runs away, but then Michael Myers shows up and, haunts them, so they have to survive Michael Myers again and, finally kill him. Which they do. They do finally kill him. And then they can move on, I guess. That's the story. That's the story of this film. And is the final confrontation between these two effective? I would say it is. And I also kind of. The ending, I'm not sure how much I like it. So everyone in the town shows up when they hear that Michael Myers has died. And to make sure that nobody commemorates him or glorifies him, or like the horror podcasters went back to open this wound, they just put him. They parade him through the town on a police car and then put him into a big, what do you call something that crushes big things like cars or whatever, or it's not a wood chipper. It's much larger than that, and they just disintegrate the body and they move on. And I don't know where that leaves me. I had heard the movie had received very bad reviews. That's actually because after watching the first Halloween Kills, I watched within a week. And then, and that was right before this movie came out. I wanted to know if I should watch Halloween Kills in the cinema. And then I heard that, a lot of people weren't satisfied with it. And then I think it was Red Letter Media who said that actually they liked it. That they liked the directions it went in. Normally, I do I don't know necessarily agree, but I do normally like to hear their opinions. But then them liking it, made me just, shut off that video. I didn't want anything spoiled. So when I watched it myself, I will say I had nothing of the plot spoiled before going in. And I don't know. It's just Halloween Ends. It's a confusing film. Well, no. I feel confused about it. I feel conflicted about it. And I don't know. The new sequel trilogy has one good film and one maybe mediocre film, and that's Halloween Kills. And I honestly thought that the last film, Halloween Ends, is so poorly written in so many ways, and it's just two stories colliding in a way that is not done elegantly. I think you can do something like that elegantly. I can't think of something off my mind right now, but I think it's definitely possible to do something like that well, and to end the Laurie Strode storyline, which was necessary. I just don't think that this movie does it well. I think it actually does it. Even the way they end their storyline might actually be quite nice. I think that Laurie Strode's part of this movie is good. It's just Corey, the Corey character, and everything he goes through, and how Michael Myers interacts with him. All of that is so over the top bad that everything else in this movie is just covered in the same filth created by that part of the script. I don't know. I'm here at the end of a review. I don't know. I guess this franchise isn't dead. We will have more in the future. But looking back at it, I don't think I want more. Of all the movies in the Halloween franchise, I think you can recommend 3. Halloween 3, Halloween from 2018, and Halloween 1 gets a low-key recommendation. I think it's not a bad film, I just didn't enjoy it that much. And I can give an extra recommendation, maybe even 2 extra recommendations. If you do like Halloween 1, maybe also watch Halloween 2 and Halloween H2O. Those are kind of similar and do many of the same things right, but also make some of the same mistakes, I would say. I'm not even sure Halloween 1 really makes mistakes. It's just not that enjoyable movie to me. But honestly, having been talking for 2 hours, I have had to do this in many sittings just to make sure that I gathered my thoughts and then treated each film individually. So it's actually been a day, no, 2 days since I talked about Halloween 1 by now. So I even kind of forgot what I said. But yeah, this is my longest review so far, by far. I hope it's not all in vain. I hope you enjoyed or at least could learn something from this. I, we're all having different experiences and different opinions and like different things in movies. And also, I would say that all my opinions and ideas are created from my own viewing experience, meaning that I can miss things. I could miss crucial plot points, a crucial dialogue that actually explained everything. I don't think I did in this case, but that's why if I did, please correct me. I would feel terrible about having talked shit about something and then realizing I was the wrong one who was wrong. I will not correct the video, but I can always correct my reviews on a letterboxd, where you can also see my full written reviews, which is the robot quits. Kind of like this format. I can't say I really proofread everything, but I do try to stay true to my opinion of watching the film. And therefore, if you're curious about what I wrote right after watching the movies, and if you're curious about anything, you can check it there. The robot quits. The link will also be in the description. And then I have no voice left, so yeah, please correct any mistakes I made. Um, and stay tuned, I guess. Welcome to Lazy Reviews. My name is Arvid, and I'm. What the fuck?